I used to believe that the absolute worst thing that could happen in this lifetime was being forced to drop out of nursing school, because I couldn't afford the exorbitant tuition, leaving me no choice but to work as an obscure night shift paramedic in this chaotic underground club. However, fate decided to play a much more heart-stopping joke on me during that raging blizzard night. I had merely gone to provide emergency treatment for a guest suffering from alcohol poisoning, yet I unknowingly stepped right into the private territory of Chicago. Mysterious tycoon Dante Moretti, that man whose eyes were colder than the storm outside and who had just subdued an intruder, pressed a cold warning against my forehead in the very next second. I thought I would be cast out like an insignificant ant, or perhaps even made to disappear entirely. However, when I raised my hands in utter despair, revealing that strange, twisted scar on my left arm, the man rumored to be cold-blooded not only stopped his intimidation, but instead trembled violently as if he had been struck by lightning. He not only holstered his weapon, but also grabbed my hand with an uncontrollable intensity, his eyes surging with a deep affection and shock that threatened to swallow me whole. Even his well-trained bodyguards standing behind him were left completely stunned by the scene. Because of this single scar, I even transformed in an instant from an intruder into the only ghost queen of this underground palace. To understand how this happened, we have to go back to that moment at 20:15 a.m. when my heart nearly stopped beating. That night, the blizzard roared outside the windows of Chicago as if it wanted to tear the city apart. Inside the VIP room of the Inferno private club, the tension in the air was taut, like a string about to snap. I had been hiding in the shadows of the hallway, organizing my medical kit. However, the door to the private room suddenly flew open, and the massive noise forced me to freeze in my tracks. Through the crack in the door, I saw that a silent confrontation had just ended. A man in camouflage lay unconscious by the coffee table, clearly already subdued. Standing before him was Dante Moretti, wearing a black coat dusted with snowflakes, radiating an aura so powerful it was suffocating. Even though his own hand was bleeding, cut during the ambush, he didn't seem to care in the slightest. Take him down and find out who sent him. His voice was low and raspy. Even a scrap of paper on him must be investigated thoroughly. I held my breath, covering my mouth tightly as I tried to shrink myself into the corner of the wall, hoping that once they left, I could slip away as usual. However, fate had no intention of letting me go. The old stethoscope hanging at my waist swung and hit the marble wall, making a crisp ding sound that rang out like an alarm in the dead silence of the hallway. Dante Moretti whipped his head around, his eyes sharp as a falcon S. "Who is there?" His oppressive gaze locked onto me instantly. I was trembling all over as I walked out clutching my first aid kit, looking completely out of place in this night filled with murderous intent. "Don't misunderstand. I am the paramedic here. The front desk said someone fainted." I stammered my explanation, cold sweat soaking my back. Dante narrowed his eyes, looking at my faded work uniform. In his eyes, there was not only no trust, but instead a flash of wariness. An employee here, or a spy disguised as a paramedic. I really am here to save lives. There is no one here who needs your saving. Dante turned away coldly. Leave this place and forget everything you saw, or you will find yourself in big trouble. Fear made it almost impossible for me to breathe, but I didn't want trouble. I still needed to save money for my mother's medical bills. Survival instinct triumphed over fear as my gaze fell on his hand, which was still dripping blood. "Your hand. The wound is very deep." My voice shook, but I spoke very fast. "If you don't stop the bleeding and stitch it up immediately, you not only will become weak from blood loss, but you might even suffer permanent damage to your finger dexterity. For a big shot like you, that hand must be very important, right?" Dante paused, seemingly surprised that this apparently fragile girl was actually concerned about his injury. "Are you telling me what to do? I am giving you medical advice." I raised my hands to show I only held gauze. "Let me treat your wound, and then let me go, please." Dante was silent for a moment, and just as he was about to refuse, his gaze swept over my raised left arm. For ease of work, I had rolled my sleeves up above my elbows. On the pale skin of my inner arm, that scar looked particularly distinct under the hallway lights. It was a pink, twisted scar, like an ancient totem, an infinity symbol pierced by a sharp sword. However, in that very second, the air solidified. Dante, S' expression instantly shifted from coldness to extreme shock. He didn't even care about the wound on his hand as he rushed over in large strides. He grabbed my wrist with surprising strength, yet became incredibly gentle the moment he touched the scar. He stared dead at it, as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. "This is impossible." His voice trembled, sounding like a sigh from the depths of his soul. "Who are you? This scar? How could you possibly have this scar?" "It hurts," I struggled in panic. "I got this at the sanctuary. It was my sister Isabella." "Who are you? How do you know?" Hearing the name Isabella, Dante looked as if he had been struck in the heart by a heavy hammer. He stumbled backward, his eyes a mix of madness, pain, and disbelief. This man, who had just been in total control, now actually looked more fragile than I did. "Isabella," he murmured. "Take her away. Take her to the safe house. I want to personally question this young lady." The next morning, I was invited to Dante's study. There were no terrifying torture devices as I had imagined, only expensive leather sofas and a wall full of books. Dante walked in. His hand hadn't been treated yet, and the blood had dried. He handed me a photograph. In the photo was a woman wearing a wedding dress, looking noble and elegant. That was Isabella, the sister in my memories who always protected me. On the inside of her arm there was a scar identical to mine. That was my wife. Dante stared at me, his eyes complex. "She died in an accident 3 years ago. Now, tell me, why does an ordinary night shift paramedic have the same scar as her?" "Because we are twins." I took a deep breath and revealed the secret buried for years, not by blood but by fate. We grew up together in the sanctuary boarding school. The management there was very strict, so we swore to be each other's family forever. This scar is the mark of our promise. I looked at the photo, my eyes moist. She married you. Was she happy?" "She is gone." Dante's voice was low. "She died in a car accident, but I always felt it wasn't an accident." He suddenly extended his injured hand to me. "Prove your ability, miss. Stitch it up for me." I opened the first aid kit, took out the iodine, gauze, and needle holder. When I held his hand, I found he was trembling, not from pain but from some deep-seated regret. "Don't move." I entered my professional mode. "It will be done soon." I skillfully cleaned the wound, threaded the needle, and stitched. My movements were gentle and precise. "Your technique is good." Dante watched me. "Why didn't you go to a major hospital?" "Tuition fees." I snipped the thread. "And I offended people I shouldn't have, so my records were held back." "Isabella was like that too," Dante suddenly said, his voice softening. "She was always kind and wanted to help everyone. Before the accident, she had been investigating the sponsors behind the sanctuary. She said there was a huge lie hidden there." He looked at me, his gaze turning intense. "Elena, you are the only clue she left behind. Senator Sterling, that seemingly glamorous philanthropist, is the behind-the-scenes manager of the sanctuary. There is a charity gala the day after tomorrow, and I want to take you there." "I'm not going," I refused instinctively. "I'm just an ordinary person. I don't understand the games you big shots play." "Sterling has seen this scar," Dante said. "He fears this scar. I want you to become Isabella's shadow and test his reaction. What if I don't go? Then not only will you be unable to escape your current predicament, but you will also miss the chance to find out the truth about Isabella," Dante said seriously. "Besides, don't you want to know why you have the same scar?" That sentence hit me hard. Isabella was the only family I had in this world. "Fine," I packed up the kit, "but I have a condition. Help me settle my debts, and I want a recommendation letter for a legitimate hospital." Dante raised an eyebrow. "Deal." The charity gala was held at the Four Seasons Hotel. I changed out of my work clothes into a deep red evening gown. The makeup artist covered my fatigue, but my hands, slightly rough from long-term work, couldn't be hidden. Dante gave me a pair of long gloves, with a slit cut only at the left wrist to reveal the scar. "Remember, you are my special consultant." Dante took my arm as we walked into the banquet hall. "You don't need to please anyone, you just need to keep an eye on Sterling." The banquet hall was filled with glittering lights, but I could sense the undercurrents hidden in the air. Senator Sterling appeared, discussing the latest education fund with someone. "Mr. Sterling," Dante led me over. "I heard you are very interested in youth education. Let me introduce you. This is my consultant, Miss Elena." Sterling turned around and politely extended his hand. I took off my left glove and reached out to shake his hand. That infinity pierced by a sword scar was completely exposed under the crystal chandelier. Sterling's pupils dilated instantly, as if he were seeing someone who shouldn't exist. His hand recoiled as if electrocuted. "You." He pointed at my arm, his face pale. "This is impossible. What is wrong, Mr. Sterling?" I smiled, maintaining my composure. "You don't look very well. Do you need me to call a doctor for you?" Sterling stumbled backward, knocking over a waiter behind him. Impossible. That project was clearly all ready. He recognized it, Dante whispered in my ear. "The old fox is guilty." Just then, the lights in the banquet hall suddenly went out, and alarms blared loudly. "Simone, cut the power. Be careful." In the chaos, several dark figures rushed over. "Run to the kitchen." Dante shielded me as we retreated. But there were too many of them, and we were blocked in the corridor. "Damn it, we're going to be surrounded." Dante frowned deeply. Banging sounds came from outside the door. I looked around. This wasn't just a storage room. It was the hotel's janitorial supply room. "Do you have a plan?" Dante asked. "Yes." I quickly grabbed several fire extinguishers and a bucket of dry ice used for cold transport. "What are you doing?" "Creating a fog." I dumped the dry ice into the sink and turned on the hot water tap. Instantly, massive amounts of white fog surged out, filling the entire room and corridor. "Cover your nose and mouth. Get low." The moment the door was breached, the opponents couldn't see anything but a sea of whiteness. I pulled the pins on the fire extinguishers and sprayed at the doorway. The mixture of dry powder and fog caused the intruders to lose their sense of direction instantly and cough violently. "Go." I pulled the dumbfounded Dante up, and we rushed out of the encirclement in the confusion. "Are you a paramedic or a magician?" Dante asked as we ran. "Working in the nightlife scene, you have to learn to use your environment to escape," I panted. "Stop talking, run." In the safety of our hideout, we finally pieced together the truth. Isabella was not only my sister, but we were actually subjects of the Twin Project. That so-called sanctuary was actually an illegal identity replacement organization. They found or cultivated children with similar genes to serve as substitutes or shadows for heirs of wealthy families. Isabella was the perfect heir chosen, while I was the backup hidden away. Senator Sterling used this project to seize huge family trust funds. Isabella discovered this. She tried to resist and reveal the truth, which is why she met with misfortune. Now Sterling desperately needed me, the genetic backup, because only my biometric information, fingerprints and irises, could open the vault that locked away the massive funds and the evidence of his crimes. The moment I learned the truth, I felt an immense chill, but I had no time for fear. Sterling's men had tracked us to our hiding place. The final showdown would be at the abandoned sanctuary site. Sterling wanted to end everything where it began. Dante was injured and had difficulty moving. Sterling cornered us with his men. "I only need your biometric information, Elena," Sterling sneered. "Cooperate with me to open the account, and I might consider letting you live." "In your dreams." I suddenly raised a syringe of anesthetic taken from the first aid kit, a high-concentration dose originally meant for sedating animals. "Don't move." I aimed the needle at the artery in my own wrist. "If you dare come closer, I will inject myself with this. If I am in a coma or my vital signs are unstable, the biometric system will not verify me. Your billions and that evidence will be locked away forever." Sterling froze. He was greedy. He couldn't bear to lose that money. "Don't be rash." Sterling raised his hands. "We can talk about a split." In that second of stalemate, Dante saw his chance and used a mechanism he had set up earlier to cut the main power to the room. Darkness fell. I didn't hesitate. Relying on my memory of the terrain since we grew up here, I rushed forward, using the cover of darkness to plunge that tube of potent anesthetic hard into the muscle of Sterling's arm. "Have a good sleep, Senator." I pushed the plunger down coldly. Sterling swayed for a moment before collapsing limply to the ground, losing consciousness. The lights came back on, and the police rushed in. It was the anti-corruption agents we had contacted on the way. It was all over. Dante leaned against the wall looking at me. "Would you really have injected yourself just now?" "I am a paramedic." I tossed the empty syringe away and walked over to check his wound. "I know how to protect myself and I know how to silence the bad guys." Dante smiled. He took my hand and gently kissed that scar. "I want to hire you, Elena, not as a paramedic, but as my lifelong partner." 6 months later, Sterling's illegal project was completely exposed, and everyone involved was brought to justice. I finally returned to nursing school, finished my studies, and earned a scholarship. On graduation day, Dante arrived. He wore a low-key gray suit, looking like an ordinary family member, holding a bouquet of flowers. "Congratulations, Miss Elena." "Thank you, Mr. Moretti." I accepted the flowers. "But now, I am not only a nurse, but I am also a director of the newly opened Twin Foundation. That was a charity funded by Dante, dedicated to helping children who were unidentified or displaced find their families. There is a charity gala tonight," Dante said. "Just the two of us. I have the night shift." I teased him on purpose. "Then I'll just have to fake an illness and go to the ER." Dante roguishly loosened his tie. "Tachycardia, only Nurse Elena can cure it." I smiled and took his arm. That twin scar no longer looked strange in the sunlight. It had become our medal for exposing the darkness and conquering fate. In this city of rebirth, we found our own light.